Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today we are presenting year-end reporting for Sage 100 Contractor. Our presenter today is Aline Cross from Recording Company. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone is muted for a clean listening experience. If you have questions, please type them into the questions box and we will address them at the end. This presentation is being recorded and a copy will be emailed out to everyone later today. I will now turn it over to you, Aline.
Thank you, Krista. Good morning. Welcome to the Sage 100 Contractor Year-End Seminar. This morning, our agenda will include supported versions of Sage 100 Contractor, preparing Sage 100 companies for your year-end, closing and archiving the payroll data, the integration with Atrix for your federal and state tax report filings, year-end payroll reporting, year-end vendor reporting for 1099s, and then we'll show you a list of resources that you have available to you to assist with this. This year, Sage is only supporting version 22. Most of you are probably already on version 22. You may want to get on it sooner rather than later if you're not. The update for the taxes comes out the third week in December. And at that point, you'll have access to the new tax tables for 2021. You do not want that upgrade installed until after your final payroll of this year. Preparing for the year end, there are some basic housekeeping items for your Sage 100 accounting, which should be completed before archiving. You want to do company backups, you want to complete an audit, you want to make sure the calculations in 531 are set and your Affordable Care Act settings are in place. A few things to note: your payroll data needs to be archived every year after the last payroll and before the first one of the new year. You can archive prior to running all of your tax reports, but all payroll must be posted prior to archiving. Sage recommends that you archive your fiscal year every other year, but you can have at least 2 years open. And once you advance your default posting period to January of 2021, all the remaining 2021 periods will be available to you. You can push forward to January now and then reset back to December, and we can go over how to do that. Most activities in the year-end webinar and the year-end activities require exclusive access. You don't want anyone trying to enter data while you're closing out your year or even your month end. As you know, from month end, you have to have exclusive access. Before we start with any changes in our data folder, we want to do a backup. Your IT company may be running a backup, or you have one scheduled every night that's running on a folder in your server. But prior to doing that, we want to run what's called an on-demand backup, and that is done in your database administrator. All right, so you do want to be familiar with how to run backups in case you ever need to do one on demand. You should run one prior to any upgrade throughout the year. So I'm going to switch over to Sage 100 now and go over a few of the steps that are going to be in your handout. Before we start the payroll archiving, you want to run an audit, and it doesn't hurt to run this throughout the year, occasionally, at least quarterly maybe. It's under the 537 payroll audit, or if you use your tabs, it's on your payroll tab, payroll administration, payroll audit. They both take you to the same 537 menu. When you hit your audit button, it's going to run through everything that's transacted throughout the year. The errors that it will find are uncomputed records, unposted. If your taxes are out of balance, it's going to pop up a note about that. And it will tell you what errors you have. You want to print the audit report if you have any errors. And you can just print it to your screen, or you can print it out if it's extensive, which we're hoping it's not. It identifies the record number where the error is and what you need to do on that. So right here, it's telling you the quarter doesn't match the check date. So you want to make note of the record number, 243. And like I said, if there's multiple, you might want to print this out because you're going to go to each record that there's an issue on, and you can pull it up. Some things can be changed after payroll's been posted. Your dates are one, the check number, and your quarter. So here, this check was printed in the fourth quarter, but it's identified as the second. So you do want to make sure that those match, and you can just change your quarter. So once I fix that and I rerun the audit, it should come back with no errors. Again, sometimes there are more substantial errors, like your taxes are out of balance. If you hit repair, a lot of times those will be fixed. If they're not, then you would want to get with your consultant to help you repair those. Okay. One of the other steps that we're going to talk about is making sure your calculations are set up for your taxes. Under your payroll calculations, if you have a 401 or a health insurance plan, those get reported on the W-2. So you want to make sure that your W-2 box is identified in this bottom right corner. So 401 is usually going to go to box 12, and it could be one of any code based on what type it is. If it's a Roth, it goes to a AA. If it's the standard 401, it goes to D. Those can be found, besides in this handout, if you go to the help window and you were to put in W-2 box 12, it's going to pop up and give you a list of all the codes that are standard for the W-2 reporting. And that's right in your Sage Help menu. Okay. So you want to ensure that those are set up. If it's a box 14 code, those are a little bit different. A box 14 code is going to be a health insurance or a union dues, something of that nature. And you will want to put the box 14 in here. And this allows you to put your own description in, but it only takes 7 characters. So you want it to be a little bit identifiable. So if it's health insurance or something of that nature, dues, you can put up to 7 characters and that will print on their W-2. So that's, in case you didn't know, that's what these little boxes on your payroll calculations are for. All right. Box 14, a list of some of the items that it covers are also included in your handout. The next step on is your Affordable Care Act reporting that I mentioned earlier on. The Affordable Care Act has been around for a few years now, and Sage 100 has always been in compliance with that since it came out. It used to be the last tab until they updated our W-4 this year. But Affordable Care Act, if you are tracking it, you make sure to fill out this on each employee's record. And your codes here are given to you by your insurance company or your benefits provider. They will have those codes for you. In a lot of cases, your benefits provider does this form for you anyway, so it may be just a little redundant to do it in here also. But that's where it's reported on each employee, and it's an individual setup, employee by employee. While I'm on this page, I do want to note the new W-4 tab. If you have a new employee this year in 2020 and they fill out the new form, you want to set them up on this tab. If you're matching payroll from prior years, you want to keep them set up in the old format here with the marital status. That's going to calculate on the old tax rates prior to the update form. If you need, if you have any questions with that, we can go over that later, but I just wanted to bring that up at this point, that this is based on the new tax form and the way it's created, which is a little confusing to some people. All right, the next step on the Affordable Care Act is when you're entering your payroll, you probably see this little Affordable Care Act box up here. That wrong record number. This box tracks the Affordable Care Act hours by month. So if I have an overlapping month, it's going to put the first month here and the second month here. That way it makes sure to report on your forms in the correct month. So this is all in one month, the end of May. If I had crossed into June, my May hours would be here, my June hours would be here. It will do that for you automatically, so you don't have to worry about it reporting in the right period. And the last step that we'll go over on the Affordable Care Act, it's the reporting. Under 543, we have the Affordable Care Act, the full-time equivalent count, which determines whether you're subject to it, to filing, and the count reconciliation. The forms themselves, the 1094 and 1095, are printed from the 541 menu. The 1095 and 1094s are there. Again, if you need assistance with that, then it can be done at a different time than today. So we went over these screens live, but just so you know that they are included in the handout, where all of the things that we've touched base on, the box 12 reporting, the box 14 items that are reported in there, the Affordable Care Act, wwirs.gov, Affordable Care Act, how to set up the screen. If you do have self-insured coverage, you put your employees' family members down below. So there's space for all that to be filled out also if you are self-insured coverage. And this is just a shot of what forms you need to fill out based on employees. Okay. So now we're going to move on a little bit to our reconciling. Before we start the archive, you want to go to your payroll records. Up at the very top under File, Count, you're going to see how many records you have processed that year for payroll. When we come back in after archiving and you do the file count, this is going to be 0. Okay, and our archive should have 297 records in it. All right. So when we go into the database administrator, closing and archiving, the steps that you do are very important. Once you've printed and posted all of your 2020 checks, you're going to do your backup and you're going to archive your payroll prior to doing the download for the 2021 tax tables. You can still run all of your tax reports out of your archive. After you archive and update, then you can change your posting period from December to January. Once you have all your accounting data in for 2020 or 2019, whatever year, you want to make sure you can archive your oldest fiscal year also. When you click on this oldest fiscal year and you pick your company, it's going to tell you what your oldest fiscal year is. So if you don't want to archive from there, you wouldn't. All right. So again, older versions that are not supported, you would do this from within Sage 100 for the backup and the archive. The past few years, it's all been done through the database administrator. It is on your server, and you may or may not have access to it. You may have to have your IT company give you access. You come in here and you can back up on demand at any time. You select your backup company. So we're going to back up 2019 payroll. You just come down, it's going to show you the path where the backup is stored. You can store this in another location, but that's the default. And you hit create backup. It just gives you the message that these on-demand backups are kept for 30 days. All right, and you just hit OK, and it's going to back up. All right. Again, back on Sage, while that's backing up, you want to make sure that nobody's in here. You should have it shut down if you're in the same current year. At this point, when you're doing a backup, nobody, not even yourself, should have this program open. All right. If I did try to come into payroll management and run my backup from here, close my payroll year, it is going to tell me that I have to archive prior to entering time cards that will be paid in the next year. There is a year-end guide that's in here that you can access, and it does tell you that this function is now located on the database administrator. Okay. It is possible to enter 2021 payroll without archiving. If you do, you're going to have a mess because you'll have to delete the entire payroll, void it, archive, and then reissue your 2021 payroll. And your taxes will be off. All right, so once the backup is complete, you're going to come in and you're going to hit Archive Payroll Data. It's very important to pick a name that is pretty standard because you're going to do this every year. So you're going to pick your payroll company, or you're going to pick your live data company. Mine happens to be named Sample Company 2019 Payroll. And you're going to name it accordingly to that year. So if I want to archive my 2020 payroll, I would make sure that I'm calling this 2020. Then each year I can look down and just see in my archives which one I want to access. I put the PR so I can distinguish between my PR, my payroll archive, and my GL archive. All right, so we're going to come in. I am going to do the 2019. And we're going to hit Create Archive. At this point, you can remove any employees with the selected status that are no longer referenced in the database. By no longer referenced, that means if they're tied to a job that's still open and you're not archiving that job, that employee will not be removed. Otherwise, it would leave a blank line in your labor reports. So it will not remove an employee with a current reference. Okay, we're going to hit Create Archive. And it's going to tell you all the payroll records in this company are going to be deleted. Do you want to continue? Are you sure? Yes. And it does do another backup. But as I said before, don't rely on this backup because if anything happens, if your server shuts down for any reason or a hiccup happens, it may not back up properly. So it's always a good idea to back up first. Once the archive is complete, it will be accessible under your Change Company, Show Archives. So it is going to be sitting here. And you can do everything in here that you can do in your live company, including the reports. At this point, and it's not accessible now, so I'm not going to go through those steps, but at this point, we would do the update, and you would do that again on your server. You would do the download, you would upgrade your company databases, and you would make sure to push that out to all users. When you come back into your Sage 100, there are a couple of more housekeeping things you'll have to do for the 2021. On your payroll calculations, it updates all of the tables that are in the background for federal and state taxes. What it does not do is change any defaults. And if it changed one, it would have to change all defaults. So you will have to update your Social Security and Medicare defaults manually. You'll also have to update any of your company specific taxes, your unemployment, anything that's specific to your company. If the 401 default changes, you would change that. Once you make a change to something like this, under options, you update employees. You can update the default rate and maximum or the maximum only. And make sure, especially on specific ones like the 401, you only want to do employees with this calculation. It doesn't need to go out to all employees, unlike the Social Security, which you would do to all. And it's just going to tell you that it will update and how many employees will be updated. Okay. So before you start your 2021 payroll, you want to make sure to get those defaults updated. Okay. We're going to step now to the Atrix filing. Atrix is a third-party program that comes with Sage 100. And if you're familiar with filing your weekly electronic EFTPS through here or your quarterly reports, it does a really good job of compiling all that information. It does do the 1095 and 1094 for the Affordable Care Act. It does your 940, the W-2s, which we'll come back to. Your 941, it does both the front and the backup pages. and it does your federal tax deposit. Now, most federal tax report filing, I should say all, is based on the check date. It's not based on the period end date. And that's very important because you can run different reports in 100 based on period end and based on check date. If you're trying to reconcile back to a federal report for tax filing, you want to always use check date. All right. So we're going to come up here. We're going to go to the 2020 W-2 forms. And it does say 2019, and that again is because the update has not come out yet. Once that update comes out at the end of the year, you will have the 2020 forms listed here. Okay. So once you select your form and you put your correct year in, you're going to hit Run Report. Now you may get that little pop-up message that says these have to be updated, and you want to do that because Atrix runs these updates all the time. They send out updates throughout the year based on whether any community's tax form has changed. So the update goes out universally. So you may not have any updates to do, but if it asks you, then you definitely want to run it. All right, there's a few things that we have to go through on this setup. We want to test drive. And the nice part about in here, under all these forms, is I can run a test drive. So I don't have to start processing. So the first time I run it through, I do want to do a test drive. And I hit next, make sure my company tax number is in place. And it's asking if I want to use multiple payroll data files or just one. So we're going to use one for this example. And then it verifies your company information in here. Now, if anything's off and I hit next, it's going to tell me it's invalid value. So I would come back and put a valid value in. Sorry, I just hit next or enter and it went next because it was compliant. It defaults to I'm filing for my company or employer, but if you are a tax company or outside entity that's doing it for, you could put that third party. It's going to look for your tax numbers, and it does give you the default for that screen. And you can add it or double click and it's going to go in. And you can't use their number. It will tell you. You should have your own tax numbers in here. All right. Now, if you're in Pennsylvania, you know that there is a unique local tax filing system. If you're in a state that does not have local tax, you won't have to worry about it. Florida's one. You don't have the W-2 copy doesn't go for Florida. Pennsylvania is going to look for help in here, so you may need some additional help with this. Okay, but PA under TCD, it asks for your county, and you just put this information in. Usually once it's set up, it stays, and your account number. Okay. When you hit next, then it's going to it's still in the PA Act 32, so it's just asking if I'm a quarterly filer and if this is my district. And your PSD code is 6 digits. Okay. Do you want to fill in any missing PSD? The next tab, do you have any employees who are exempt? These are just some standard questions that you need to answer. The default to no, and you're just going to hit next. Do you want to use control number? You put, that's box A, you can put a number in here. We want to check off that you're a 941 filer and none apply, unless you are a 501 government, non-government filer, or any of these other pertain to you. These are the standard settings, 941 and none apply. If you have any employees that got third-party sick pay, you would check this box. Okay. And if your business terminated this year, you would check that box also. Now what it does is it's going through and it's creating a summary table of all its information. And when that summary table pops up, we're going to be able to go through each column and make any adjustments. If anything's missing, it's going to be in red and it will not allow you to proceed until that's corrected. And that's why it's a good idea to run this in the test drive mode before you run it live. And it does flag you again. No payroll information will be saved or transmitted. And the reason you want to run this in test drive is because if I'm missing any pertinent information in here, I want to make sure that it's filled out in Sage 100 before here. Sage 100 will feed this report, but this report will not feed back to Sage 100. All right, so as I hit next at the top, it's going to go through the columns and it's going to look for information. If I have any retirement plan or third party checked off on the employee SAB record, those will be checked off in here already. And it just keeps going through each column. It's checking all of the columns, federal wages, state wages. There's some California tax wages. Any of the unassigned column, it's going to flag. And here it's giving me a warning because I have local wages, but no state. So I can go back and correct it, or I can continue without correcting. As it's a yellow, not a red, I can continue. And I can look at it quickly and say, okay, they have California SDI wages. Is that correct? They don't have California state tax. They could be exempt from California tax. As long as I verify that information, then I can continue. And just hit next. Now it's showing me that I have all these unassigned columns. Do these columns need to be reported on my W-2 form or not? Some of them don't. And if they do, you can assign the column right here. And if they're just calculations that we have set up because it's a deduction you take, child support doesn't go on the W-2. The employer 401 contribution doesn't go on. So those types of things are going to pop up in here because we've created calculations for them, but they don't necessarily report on the W-2. So we can just continue. So it is important to know what's going to be reported. So now I do have some negative values in here. Those will have to be fixed. It doesn't even give me the option to continue. Go back and correct. I have no idea why they have negative health insurance, but we would just zero those out. Looks like a calculation might be wrong. Or we moved it from one employee to another, maybe. So now an adjustment like that, I would definitely want to go back into 100. We're just kind of running through these. And it's going to flag me again. I have more calculations. Anything that he didn't fix, because I want to proceed, it will flag me again that they're still there. So this is my final warning. I have these 2 warnings still out here. I'm just going to continue. Atrix offers e-filing through them for a fee, and this will pop up and tell you how much it costs, and you can sign up with them directly for that. That is an Atrix service, and it does default to complete e-filing and gives you a fee. You can go to other options. You can print your employee W-2s, and you can print your federal. All right, and then you hit next again, and it's still going to give you the benefit of e-filing if they want you to do that. And it's asking if I want to select the state that I want to file at this time too. We do not have to do the state forms through here. You can run them separately. It gives you a little summary. This is a list of what's going to print. So if I hit the print button here, what it's going to print is this little window here to let me know what I'm printing. So it's going to print my federal 941, Pennsylvania W-2, employee W-2, and employer W-2. The 941 federal W-2 is your federal forms. So once we hit next again, it comes back into my report loading. It does take a couple minutes for some of these steps. And it will show you, now the new form, you can order these through Sage if you want to. It's a It's a plain piece of paper that's a 4-part perforation, and it fills out completely like this. So you don't have to get the pre-printed forms. In fact, these won't really print to the pre-printed forms. It's a 4-part. So I'm hitting next step, and it's telling me to insert my paper, but I'm just going to cancel. And it's going to go to the next. And up at the top, you'll see that was report 1. This is report 2, which is my employee W-2s. So I know right at the top in this yellow band what's printing. So here's my employee ones. We just go to next step. Do I want to print them now? No. Typically, you would say yes. You would print them. It goes to 3, which is my employer copy of my W-2s. And now it's going to my federal. Now the federal is still in the 2-part form. And again, when you get the package, it will include, you will print these still in the 4-part. And then it's my W-3 form, which is red. It used to be red, prints on white now. They do accept the white. In case you have the red form, it's not going to match up when you print it to that red form, but this is an accepted form for filing. And then it's going to go through my PA. And the last form that it will print is the backside of the W-2 notice. And it is a notice. It's just, tells them what should be in each box and all. So you can print that on the backside, or you can give it to them separate. Once I'm done, it will save these. I can always go in and view my history and reprint if I need to. So if I made a mistake, or I have to adjust them and reprint them, I can do that. And there would be a list here of all the forms that were printed. If you're doing your 941s through here, your EFTPS, all of those will be listed here as a history. All right. The next part of this for the W-2s are your state forms. Once you select your state, I'm in PA, so I'm partial to the PA, but every state has its own specific forms. Pennsylvania does have the Act 32 forms, your 501, your W-3, and your unemployment. New Jersey, you have your own specific forms. You have the monthly and weekly 500, the 927, W-4. Same with New York. Whatever forms you have are going to be under these state forms. All right, and those can all be test driven also. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We'll have questions at the end, but we're going to go now over to the vendor setup. So there's a little bit of housekeeping you want to do in the vendors. I am going to tell you right now, we are using 2018 to do these because the new forms are not out, so the data will not compile at this time for 2020. And there's no data for 2019 in here. So if you tried to run yours today, it will give you the reports, which I'm going to show you, but you wouldn't be able to print the 1099s. So before you run any 1099s, you want to make sure that all of your vendors are set up with the information that is needed. So if I come in here and I find one of my vendors that is a contractor, I'm going to come in and I'm going to make sure that their federal tax ID number is in here and that their tax type 1099 type is correct. If it doesn't have these two pieces of information, it's not going to know that you need to print a 1099 for them. Okay. There are some reports that you can run in here to verify dollar amounts and 1099 reporting. So if we go to 4.1, 61, 41161. I can run a 1099 report, and it's going to give me a report for any open years that I have in here. So I have a 2018, 19, and 20. You can drill down to your vendors, just like in any other Sage 100 report, and look at the information, especially if you see something unusual up here. It's also going to show you if you're missing numbers. So if I have a dollar amount over here and I don't have my number and my 1099 type listed, I need to go back and correct it. So like here I have a dollar amount miscellaneous, but there's no tax ID number. You want to fix those things before, because again, you can fix them on the 1099 form, but it won't fill back to Sage 100. So it's always better to come in and look at that information. So that's one good report. A couple other things that you can do in here. Your 41 is your insurance report. This is going to give you your expiration dates for any insurance certificates. So it's a good time of year to go in and just double check that information. In 416 vendor documents, we have an expired certificates letter that you could send out to anyone with a expired certification. All right. The last step is under 4.5 to generate the 1099 forms. If they're electronic, you can select the ones that are electronic. But we're going to take the miscellaneous form. So it offers the miscellaneous and the interest form. Same steps pretty much as doing the W-2s. We're going to pick our year. It is going to yell at me that I have the wrong year. It tells me I'm reporting 2018, but this form is 2020. I'm still going to continue. So all these steps, like I said, are the same. We're going to test drive the first time, make sure our numbers are all in order, single database, make sure our address is correct. And in some cases, you want to put the contact name and the title of your company, so those will print on some of your reports also. Filing for your company. No tax needed here because these are not reported the same way the W-2s are. And do we have any who want electronic forms? It gives you the option of truncating their Social Security or federal ID number with either zeros or X's or something in the place. Again, you get the grid that's going to pop up. This one's a little more simple than the W-2 because we don't have all of the columns that we do. There's basic ones you need to check are your taxpayer ID number in place, their company name and address is all going to be in here. And the same thing, next is just going to go through, and you're going to see the blue columns as it goes through. And column 7, I jumped over to 17, is your non-employee compensation. So those amounts should be in place and the filing state. And that's about all that's required on the 1099 form. You hit next. And any errors, again, we're going to pop up. Anything in red would have to be fixed. Goes through the same Atrix. Do I want to print? Do I want to e-file? Any states that I want to print, I can add them. And again, the summary of what's printing. And then it's going to pop up my forms. And it will go through the same steps of printing each one of those forms. Okay. So the 1099s are a little quicker and easier to get through. But I'm just going to close that at this time and cancel there. All right, so you're going to get this access to this handout, and it goes through everything that we kind of went through, the forms, what you should expect to see on your screens as you go through them. Anything in red, your printing options. Everything is in here, 1099 up, housekeeping. All right, the last slide I have in here, your Sage resources are on your home and resource menu under Sage support. You can do a live chat. That's usually the preferred first step. You can log into the knowledge base and look for questions in there. You can enter a support ticket. If they ask you about your version of Sage, you would come to your Home and Resources tab at the very bottom, and I clicked the wrong button. At the very bottom of your Home and Resources tab, you have About Sage 100. This is what they're going to be looking for, is your Sage customer ID and your edition. Those are two questions they'll always ask. Okay. And here is your resources. Sage City is an online interactive kind of support system that you can log in and see somebody might have already had the same question as you. You have the Sage knowledge base, and Sage University has classes available. The F1 help key, of course, gets you to any help on that current page that you're on. And then you have your consultant at Accordant that is always available for you. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, we have a few questions. The
Okay.
first question is, can you go into more detail on the W-4 for 2020?
Yes. So the W-4 for 2020 was, 2020 came out with new tax tables. One issue that we ran into early on with it is when we were entering new employees or new databases for companies that had existing employees, their calculations were based on the older tables. And there's usually about a $20 difference between using this old setup and this new tax form. The new tax form is filled out a little bit differently. You put in, there's only the three options: single or married filing separate, married filing joint, or head of household. If the spouse works, you check a box. If they claim dependents, you don't put a 1, 2, or 3, how many dependents now. It's done in multiples of 1,000. You would want to get the form and print it out and look into it. It's a few people have had difficulty with it, and we, like I said, we have found if you have employees that you've had on your payroll prior to 2020, you don't want to use this tab to set them up. Any new employee, you'll have them fill out the new W-4. Unless they're filling out a new form every year for you and you're going to update it, then your old employees will stay on the old tax tables. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if you're trying to, when we were setting up some new clients this year, if we were trying to match an existing payroll, we were running into the error of people with older employees. The taxes were about $20 off.
Okay, the next question is, can you print the grid that shows the errors listed?
Print the grid. In the W-2 forms, I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe the one that shows red or yellow.
Yes, I believe there is a print for those. It takes a lot of steps to get back in there. But if you can give me your contact information, I'll get more specific.
Okay.
I'll
good.
update the, yeah.
Okay. Can you repeat what you said about the W-2 paper?
Yes, if you were to order forms, and Sage does order forms, you'll notice that the current form now is, it shows you these forms. The current tax forms are usually four squares, even sides, and they're blank. It's just a 4-part perforated paper. And our forms are designed to fit exactly on those. There's no markings at all anymore. everything prints out from the program. And when you fold them in half, you'll still send one sheet to an employee, but you fold it in half, it sticks right in the envelope, shows the addresses.
Okay. Okay, the next question is, will Sage or Atrix have an update regarding the new 1099 NEC we have to use for 2020 instead of the 1099 miscellaneous for non-employee compensation?
Traditionally, they have only offered ever the non-employee compensation and the interest form, miscellaneous and the INT. So if it's updated this year, then it will be in the release.
Okay, great. The last question we have is, did the 1099 miscellaneous form change to a different number?
No, it's always been the 1099 as far as I know.
Okay. So thank you, Aline. And if you do have any other questions, we will be sending out the recording later and we'll have our contact information in there. So feel free to reply. Thank you all for attending. Stay safe and healthy. Have a lovely holiday and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.
Thank you, Krista.